Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is time. It is for discussing top for the week, and it is of course the course of April 28th, 2018. 18 is our fourth episode, in fact. Once again, joining us, of course, is our reoccurring guest, Orcish Librarian, here to talk with us a bit more magic. Of course, once again, joining us is myself, Wyrm, and hopefully Joe will join us in a little bit, but we'll find out what's going on with him. Anyway, why don't we dive into the docket for this week? We do have a couple of topics I want to talk about. First, about International Tabletop Day. I pretty much forgot to mark it that it was this weekend because I'm stupid. Talk a little bit about that. Magic the Gathering, the Dominaria set has come out. Pathfinder has released the Nidal region, which seems kind of interesting. It's an area that kind of sold their soul to their soul god in order to protect themselves. Starfinder, the latest adventure in it, has Megastructures. I want to talk about because a lot of Stellaris with Megastructures, so that's the only reason I wanted to talk about it. A book for Savage Worlds, Buccanner Through Hell and High Water, a pirate RPG book. It'll come out. That's kind of cool. And then Realms of Terriroth for the Genesis by Fantasy Flight. Then, of course, we'll hit into our regular segments. Kickstarter Korner, Our Week in Tabletop, and Consult the Table. All right. Why don't we dive to International Tabletop Day? I completely forgot it was forgotten today. Truthfully speaking. I don't know if either of you thought about it too. That's one of the things is like, I knew about it, and I kind of had plans for it, but the problem was things, just generally are usually crazy. My schedule, unless I think about something of it, I forget about it, And this one, it was like a couple of weeks ago. Last time I thought I might, like three or four. So yeah, I forgot.
So I didn't even know this was a thing.
I also didn't know this was a thing because if I'm being on the only holidays we celebrate in this house are Talk Like a Pirate Day. And thanks. So
look, Talk Like a Pirate Day.
That's what we got.
It's right on my birthday, so it's the ultimate holiday.
I also like Day and Star Wars Day.
Well, the thing is, Tabletop Day has been a mixed bag for bad. I have to really say personally, I had a couple of great times which I've actually celebrated it and had a fun time because it was like, yeah, you can celebrate it with your friends, but friends out to a place that's having an event or something. The local, well, I wouldn't call it local. It's like half 45 minutes from me. Then it's from Barnes & Noble. That still exists, surprisingly.
Yeah, there's one around here too.
Borders died, but Barnes & Noble somehow managed to survive. Good for them.
Which is sad because this was so much better.
They had better discount card.
It's Highlander for bookstore. There can be only one.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So they had an event in 1 year that was really great. It was organized by something with the store. I was there for half a day. Then there was another year. The person had to leave 3 hours in, and so then it just kind of fell apart. There was an emergency. And then it was there was another year where they just had some tables set up, went and hung out there. And then it was also, we went to a game store the one time, in Joe, and North, and that one it was fine, but it was filled up. It was basically the same kind of rooms they'd use just for Magic anyway, and it was hard to get in with groups there. A lot harder, just because it was a lot squished into a room. It's those kind of back rooms on a card shop where you're playing Magic. There's sometimes there is just not a lot of room there, and even when you're doing top games, it's sort of you have to kind of somehow squeeze yourself into these groups.
Listen, if you can even get in and don't have to suck in your gut to get between the rows of seats and climb over a bunch of cardboard boxes filled with bulk comics, to get to the table, then that's a better setup than the average LGS in my experience. So,
yeah. I mean, it was nice, but it was like I've officially had like 1.5 good experiences on International Tabletop Day when I've gone out on adventures to, like, actually celebrate it.
well, I feel like the obvious solution here is to merge Tabletop Day and Talk Like a Pirate Day and just do like pirate-themed games. So I feel like everybody could win.
That would be a good one. Like, I figure part of me wants to do something like online today, but it's also like when you get a schedule and you're like last minute, I'm like, I just don't know if I could do something else. I'll play some tabletop games today, but part of me does feel bad like that I'm not like diving into it once again.
I absolve you.
Thank you.
Go in peace.
I shall go in peace and enjoy the fact that I will probably just play some board games as normal as I always do. Maybe we'll like have a party favor there while we're at it. Wee. As long as it's not a loud one, because we hang out at a diner and do that. We don't want to disturb them. So I mean, if you're out there and you're celebrating International Tabletop Day, or if you already have, good on you. Definitely, I don't have any gaming bars near me on Funny One, and lemons. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that I don't think I can dive into it personally, and I guess it's like, when you know about it, it's finding that balance of what you can do for it and what is practical. And my planning ahead was terrible today, so I'll do what I can. All right, so why don't we talk about, I did want to both talk about Magic Gathering Dominaria, and I did want to talk with you, Orcish Librarian, about your experience with the latest GP. Was that Seattle?
Yep, not the latest GP, but it was out in Seattle.
The one that I knew you were at.
Yep.
Why don't we start with that, because I feel like Seattle and Vegas are showing what Magic tournaments can evolve into a little bit more. It sounds a lot like.
Yeah, I think that so last year, CFB, which has the exclusive license now to run Magic GPs, did essentially, they called it like a double GP in Las Vegas, where instead of a 3-day event with one main event tournament, they essentially ran like a 4-day event that had 2 separate main event tournaments. And it essentially turned into kind of almost like a little miniature convention. Not in a fully formed way. It's this, you can tell that this is still kind of very much a concept under construction. It's still very much focused around the fact that there is a large tournament. That's what the tournament organizer is primarily concerned about. That's what they're doing to make their money. But you had, I think, something like 30 artists that were at GP Vegas last year. You had an actual factual art show that Mike Linneman, who's active in the Magic community, and Rico Evangelino, who runs Cartamajigs, which is a great accessory maker, and a bunch of other people funded through Kickstarter. There was that actual art show on the premises that had original art, dozens and dozens of pieces of original Magic art, which was free for everyone to just come in and look at. You had, in conjunction with the art show, you had a group of cosplayers working the art show, led by MJ Scott, who's Moxie MTG on Twitter, and who everybody should be following because she's an absolute champion in every conceivable regard. So you had a huge cosplay presence at Las Vegas, and that you had essentially like a little stage area where content creators and other, sort of stars in the community were doing live panels, were doing live podcasts. There was a, live card reveal with a sand sculpture and everything. So essentially, this was kind of like, for years people have said, well, why isn't there like a Magic convention? Why isn't there a Magic convention? And last year you kind of saw in separate places, sort of like parallel evolution, the way that you'll see the same traits start to pop up in different species simultaneously in evolution. You had GP Vegas, which popped up and kind of had a flavor like it was a little bit of a convention, but it was also mainly a tournament. You had Hasbro running their first ever HasCon out in Providence, which again was not specifically Magic focused because it also services the entire, Hasbro brand of family. So you had a huge Magic presence, and then you also had Mark Wahlberg there collecting a giant check and promoting some Transformers movie or something, which was kind of a little, sort of a proto-Magic convention too. And then this year, Star City Games is going to run their new con that they're calling SCG Con down in Virginia, which, again, is sort of positioning itself as being kind of like a small Magic convention. And so, yeah, it's interesting. We've gone from people saying, why isn't there a convention? We should have a convention, to suddenly you have sort of along like three separate paths. You have the double GPs that CFB runs, which sort of have a little convention flavor to them. You have Hasbro trying to do its own explicitly a con. It's explicitly a con. And you have SCG trying to do explicitly a con. And it will be interesting to see how all of these sort of develop and if there's enough oxygen in the environment for all of them to coexist, which frankly I think there is, because they're catering to different crowds. They're catering to different interests. And I hope that they all do well.
Yeah. I definitely would agree with that, seeing like a good evolution on all of them. Well, so it seems like that it's going kind of like in a good direction that way, at least. So with the... What's the question I want to ask? Sorry. I was trying to think of something else there for a second, and that sounded terrible in my mind. Yeah, that happens. The age-old brain fart. Okay.
Well,
So, do we think...
maybe... Go ahead.
Do you think that there will be more, like, Vegas?
Age-old, that must be pretty rancid.
I think that all of these events right now, and I can't speak as much to HasCon because I didn't attend it, and I can't speak as much to SCGCon because it hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. But having been to two of the double GPs now, I think that they are still very much in the process of finding a balance of what is the balance between the main event, which is all these competitive events that they're running, whether it's the main super huge GPs where you have thousands of players competing, and all the side events that are affixed to that people come to play in, versus providing space for the ancillary things, whether it's something like an art show, which isn't going to happen at every one of these, but that's, I think, a template for the sort of event you could have, for the sort of side of attraction you could have, whether it's do you want to have like a main stage where you invite guests and speakers and do panels and do live streams and whatnot. Vegas had that, Seattle didn't. To some extent, it's going to be a function of the venue. The convention center in Las Vegas is the biggest building on the face of the planet. Hashtag not literally true, but it's gigantic. There's more space there to do that sort of stuff, whereas the center in Seattle was a little bit smaller. And what's the balance, especially for the tournament organizer, between how they, this is kind of crass capitalism, but it's like they're trying to figure out what makes them money. Mm-hmm. They know they make money selling entries to the GP. They know they make money selling products. They know they make money selling tables to vendors. They know they make money selling tables to artists. I think what they're trying to figure out right now is, do they make money by enticing 20 cosplayers to come to the event? Does that get people to come? Does that get people to spend? I think they're figuring out, do they make money by providing space in the venue to do something like a charity event, which we had at Seattle, and which I think was fantastic. And I want to take a second to shout out there to Commander Clinic podcast. Again, Moxie MTG, who worked together and ran a Commander cosplay tournament that was in the main venue. Channel Fireball gave table space. They helped to promote the event. We raised over $400 for Seattle's Children's Hospital. We gave out a ton of cool prizes. We had people playing in full cosplay. Olivia, who's on Twitter as Goberthix, and has her separate account for metal cardboard, where she makes full metal Magic cards.
Cool.
Played the tournament in full Brea Ethereum Shaper cosplay and won the whole event. It was literally the coolest thing that has happened in the history of history. And that's the sort of thing where it's like, if you're the tournament organizer, you're going to have people coming up to you saying, we want to do things like this. Like, can we have space in your venue? Can we have promotional help? And I think that they're figuring out, like, what are these things that make money for us? What are draws? What increases our revenue? And to that extent, if the community out there that goes to the events likes having these things at events, if you like having 20 cosplayers at a GP, if you like having charity events at a GP, if you like having Magic art shows at a GP, the way that people can shape how these events evolve is to give that feedback to the tournament organizers. Send notes to Channel Fireball, talk to the Channel Fireball people, say, hey, I loved that there were cosplayers at this event, and that made me want to come. That made me go to a GP that maybe I otherwise wasn't going to go to. And that's the sort of feedback loop that's going to happen to demonstrate that there's a constituency for these sorts of events, that people want them at their GPs, that they want to be a part of it, and that in turn creates the signals that are going to tell the tournament organizers that they should be doing these things and that they should be also starting to invest their own resources in supporting it. Mm-hmm. The tournament organizers, if they sponsor cosplayers, provide them with a stipend to come to events. If they sponsor artists, provide the artists with a stipend to come to events, you're going to see more of those things at events. And so if this is what people like, it's really
it'll
the key thing.
Push it forward more.
Yeah, the key thing is going to be getting that message to the event organizers and saying that, we want this at the event.
Well, I guess we'll just have to watch and see how things are going with that. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about in the Magic Gathering world, though, was, of course, Dominaria, because it came out. And confession, I already got some cards from it.
That's good.
Uh-huh. I went out and bought some yesterday. So, I mean, this set is one that I guess I feel like caters to definitely the older audience more than the newer one, though. The newer one, I feel like, with some of the interesting ideas, might be able to get into it. I have found it interesting that when I would get a pack, they specifically, had a positioning for at least one legendary. That was interesting.
Yep.
Is that sometimes it would just be the uncommon legendary. So it's like, I always go to that area where normally the rare or the mythic would be, and it's like, oh, hey, wait, there's a legendary here that's uncommon. What?
Yep.
It's like, it kind of confused me at first until I kind of realized what was going on.
I think that the sort of immediate comparison that I would make is it's like in Innistrad, where every pack had a double-faced card in it.
Yeah.
And that was sort of a function of just the mechanics needed to actually do that print run, where because the double-faced cards had to be printed separately from the regular cards, essentially the way to make that work was that they had to put one in every pack.
Yeah.
In order to make the print run work out. And here, I think it's more, it's sort of similar in that you're guaranteed you're going to get a legendary in every pack, but it is less of a function of just the logistics of how do you print these different cards, and more that because so much of the flavor emphasis of the set is on legends, and so many of the mechanics too are parasitic or symbiotic, depending on your perspective, with having legendary cards in play.
Yeah.
In order to make the set draftable and playable and sealed, you have to have at least that one legendary in every pack. And it's the sort of thing where I really like it. I think it's great for this set. I don't think it's the sort of thing we should ever expect to see on a regular basis, but I think it's cool. I think it's great.
I like it too, because I feel like it makes something more unique about the Magic sets. Like, yes, the double-faced cards, having one in each set pack, made it more unique. This is another way that, similarly, we can make it more unique. Okay, so if I get a Dominaria pack, this is something slightly different from you know, a Monket pack, you know, or whatever is coming, or like, you know, each one is kind of unique in their own way, and I find that kind of cool. Definitely.
And I you know, it's obviously early in the day. We're still just on release weekend.
Yes.
But like, I can't, you know, this is the most uniform reaction I've ever seen to a set. I can't remember any time ever seeing so many people excited about a set, having fun with a set. The reaction is, at least in my, you know, sphere of the universe, universally positive, even among people who I think had some skepticism coming in. Not universally positive, not just to the flavor, not just to the art, not just to the environment, not just to the nostalgia of going back to Dominaria, not just to the excitement of finding out what happened to some of these characters who we left behind and meeting some of the new characters, although all of those things are generating excitement, but also critically excitement about how the set plays. Universally, the assessment I've heard is that people like playing this format, especially in limited, and a big part of that, it seems like, are the legends and the uncommon slots, which are pretty pushed. They're pretty, you know, uniformly pretty powerful in a limited environment, and since they're in uncommon slots, you're going to open them. You're going to open them in your draft. You're going to open them in your sealed deck, and they immediately give you something cool that you're going to build around, and people really seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like Dominaria was like blessing upon me, because truth told, got a box because I could, and that went on a lot of my extra spending money for quite a while. But I got like more mythics in that than I think I've gotten in any box ever. So I don't know if that's gonna be for everyone. It's like, did they increase the amount of mythics per pack or something, or am I just like the lucky guy this week?
Ooh, I'm about to say something, and I'm not 100% sure I'm correct, and I'm sure that the smart people who are watching this will chime in and tell me how wrong I am if I'm wrong. But again, as a function of making sure that every pack has a legendary in it, that's another slot that you could potentially hit a mythic in, as opposed to just having the one rare slot. So again, similar to Innistrad, where you had the rare slot, the normal rare slot, and then you had the two-sided card slot, where you could also get a mythic in that. So you could have the possibility that you were going to get 2 mythics in a pack. Similarly, you know, here I think because there's that legendary slot, there's a greater chance that you're going to open more rares or more mythics, even though the overall distribution is the same.
Yeah, it might be. It's such an interesting thing, you know. No, I definitely will be looking forward to breaking down a lot more of what's in the set and building things from it. Though again, I'm behind on building my block sets for a little bit. So.
Yeah. And again, like, because there's this emphasis on the legendaries, it means that such a big percentage of not just the mythic slots, rare slots, and even uncommon slots in this set are occupied by kind of like cool, interesting creatures. And for me, that's what excites me when opening product. Like, that's what I want to open. That's what I get excited about.
Yes.
You know, it's not like a set like Zendikar or a master set maybe where you're hoping to open rare lands because they're the most valuable cards. Like, you're not opening this set really hoping that you're going to open a fetch land or something. You're opening this set knowing that you're going to open like cool creatures who, even if they may not be worth as much money from a finance perspective, like, these are things you might want to build around in Commander. These are things you might want to build a brawl deck with. So for me, that's, you know, that from the perspective I come at it from, that's more exciting to me than, you know, opening packs and really hoping that I'm going to hit a land in the rare slot.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a good direction that I don't know, like, again, we'll have to see how they carry up things, because I guess the next thing coming out is their core set, the new core set, which we have to see how that actually is formatted. Since it's been a number of years since they had a core set, are they just going to repeat what they did before? Are they doing something new?
And sort of like the little asterisk I'll put on all of this is, now that the set has come out and it's been so well received and it's been so successful And my understanding is that the early indications are that it is being hugely successful. That I think Evan Irwin was saying that orders are up by a factor of 100% over Ixalan. They're selling twice as much Dominaria as they sold Ixalan. And Ixalan was a set that had a lot of buzz coming out, too. People were excited for that. It had pirates and dinosaurs. Like, people were not sleeping on Ixalan. And Dominaria apparently is doing maybe twice as well as Ixalan did.
Yeah. So
you have a lot of people saying, talking about this like this was a super obvious thing to do. Like, oh, geez, why did we wait so long to come back to Dominaria? Look how successful it is. Obviously, this was going to be super successful. And that is, I want to caution people, it was not obvious that this was going to succeed.
Yeah.
The last time we went back to Dominaria was in Time Spiral Block, which was not anywhere near this level of successful.
No.
So, just the fact that it was on Dominaria was not some sort of magic tonic that guaranteed it was going to be a success. The reason it's successful is because it plays so well. It looks so good. The narrative and the craft that's gone into it is so universally good.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we were away for so long, that we were away for about 10 years before coming back, that it gave time to build that excitement and anticipation. And what I'm hoping people don't read into this is they look at that and go, yeah, let's do Dominaria every year now. Because the fact that you had a little time away is part of what made it feel special.
Yeah.
Versus if you look at something like Shadows over Innistrad or Battle for Zendikar, where I think it feels like we went back too soon.
I agree with both of those. Both of those definitely feel like it was like too soon. Even like the returning to an area was something that I felt like was interesting, which we started with Scars of Mirrodin. But I felt like they would space that out a lot more than they kind of did in those the last couple of years. And I think that's like one of those things.
And similar to the way that just what we were just talking about with the big Magic events and like are they becoming conventions and how we're kind of learning, I think, in real time what works and what doesn't, what people want. I think you can see here what you're essentially watching is you're watching Wizards learning in real time. Like how frequently we want to go back to some of these settings, like how much we want, how do you balance let's explore new worlds versus let's go back to some of the favorite worlds. I think you saw, there was a long phase where it was like every set we're going to a new setting. Then there was a period where we went back to Mirrodin, and that was successful. We went back to Ravnica, and that was successful. And I think that message maybe got a little over-internalized, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to do that more often now. We're going to go back to Innistrad because Innistrad was super popular. We're going to go back to Zendikar because Zendikar sold super well. And because these products are developed with cycles, that are working years in advance, it takes time for that feedback to filter through the pipeline. Yeah. And I think what we're seeing now is that maybe the feedback that, I think we're doing this a little too frequently. We're not ready to go back to Innistrad. We're not maybe ready to go back to Zendikar. I think you're seeing that start to filter through the pipeline now, too.
A little bit more distance between them is better,
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah. So, if you haven't picked up Dominaria, I definitely would say check this out as a Magic player. Even if you're like maybe haven't been playing it for a while, maybe this might be one to try to jump back into. It's very interesting. I've liked it so far. So again, and I have just had brief experiences with it as of now. So my review is glowing for having like all of like 20 minutes, like opening a box and looking through some things. Never go back to Kaladesh. Look, they could do it right. They could improve it. Yes, it was probably not the best thing, but like I feel like, there's a couple of planes they could go back to that they could get better on. And then there's some that I feel like they could go back to and get better on that they never will. Like, I think now, with a lot of the lessons they learned, they could probably do a really good Kamigawa block. They never were going to do it, because the first one did so bad. If they ever do it, it will be in some kind of weird side format. Like, part of, like, maybe, like, a set of commander decks that are each based around a plane. That'd be awesome. Do that, Magic. Plane-based commander decks. You're allowed to steal that from me. I'm giving it to you.
Are commander decks like structure decks? Sorry, I'm not very magic.
Well, they are basically decks that you buy as a deck, like structured ahead of time.
Yeah.
And Commander's a special kind of format because it's 100 cards where you can only have one of every card except for the basic lands. So it's a very interesting format.
And it's all centered around, you build your deck around one legendary card, which is your commander. And again, this is me playing armchair psychologist. I don't know this for a fact, but my suspicion is that one of the things that gave Wizards the green light to say, you know what, we're really going to play up legends in this set, we're going to make that a big mechanic, is the popularity of Commander these days.
Yeah.
That cool legends are things that people get excited about. They're things that people are happy to open. And I think that maybe takes a little bit of the edge off of, is it okay to build a set that's so focused on legends?
Yeah. I mean, I could totally see, with a card game where it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm guaranteed legendaries? That's awesome! I can see why that's a very big selling point for this.
Yeah. Anyway, so Dominaria out now. Why don't we move on, though, because we can't talk about it all day. I mean, we can talk about it part of the day, but not all.
I mean, I could, but you shouldn't let me, is probably
That's true.
The more relevant point.
Yes. So, next thing I want to focus in on is Pathfinder, the Nidal book. Let me just remove that for now. So, it's Nidal, Land of Shadows. And I found this one kind of interesting that I think I've talked about in the past how Pathfinder has been doing a lot of their regions. That's been their kind of focus. Like, let's go visit this region. Let's go visit this region. Let's go visit that one. Which is kind of cool for their basic world setting. I feel like, though Dungeons & Dragons has done it in the past, I would have liked more of that, more like Sword Coast Adventures, which talks about the Sword Coast in Faerun. I would like more of that stuff, even if it's smaller releases or something online that you could get a PDF of. I would purchase that from you Wizards, but probably when I have some extra cash. I like Faerun a lot, but Galarian's not bad either. And this one's an interesting one because it's people made a deal with some kind of dark force to promise salvation for them. So they give over the bodies and souls, and so they're all a conduit for the god of envy and pain. That was sealed, and basically sealed their land's fate. That's terrible. But they're like, we'll be fine. There's only a god of envy and pain. I mean, okay. And, as usual, most of these books give, a history, gazetteer of the entire nation, settlements, adventuring places, some creatures. They do a lot of interesting things that definitely are always fun to check out in their collection of information that they provide. So, that's good. But I feel like it's sometimes when you hear about these lands, they're just sort of yeah. I don't know, what was Paizo thinking? The most tortured places in existence? We're just gonna keep making them? I just feel like most of the lands that they do these books on are very tragic and terrible. Not that I wouldn't mind a nice place, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. See, here's the thing, though. The tortured settings are honestly sometimes some of the most interesting to adventure in, though.
That's true. That's true.
So I could see why they're releasing more of them.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really want to go to the island? Because there's a place that I built based off something I read in Pathfinder where there was a gold dragon in one of their settings who basically was trying to make a perfect society on an island. And it's yeah, that could be interesting, but it definitely would be less interesting than a tortured world.
Well, I could feel like you could almost do if you support other types of gameplay, you could do some pretty cool things in those kind of settings.
Oh yeah, you could definitely.
And in the book, you could be oh hey, you could have a political thriller over here. That would be really cool. Political role-playing game. Or like, here is a great setting for, ancient tomb crawling, because maybe under that gold dragon's place is some ancient tombs or something that
Oh, yeah, it is the setting. Okay, yeah. So in the same world as the island that I was talking about. I wasn't sure, but I had to double check.
At the risk of losing the audience here, I find myself thinking of the opening lines in Anna Karenina, where they say all happy families are happy in the same way, but all unhappy families are differently unhappy. and I think you see that in some of these settings where, for whatever reason, it feels like there are more sort of spins you can put on the conflict-ridden and the dystopian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like, when you're talking about a large setting, I feel like the dystopian or that conflict works a little better, while like for Pathfinder, they've got a whole world they've developed, and they're like, the fact is, literally, I know about a couple of countries where I could say like, oh, there's the countries that's run by devils. It's a terrible place to live, unless you're like evil. Then it's a great place to live. There is like the land of Ustlav, where I ran an adventure in Pathfinder, where it's like haunted by everything, because it was overlorded by a terrible lich lord for like 10,000 years before he was imprisoned, not killed, imprisoned in the land. So it's like there's terrible things in these worlds, and like I know history and you could have pretty bad places, but like the generalized idea that a lot of lands are bad, I feel like gets it like, yes, it can be interesting, but almost a little tiring. It's like, oh, it's another place their terrible, terrible, terrible things are. Like, can't we have at least, a little bit of semblance of like, yeah, like rather than like the entire country sold their souls.
I think that's a huge part of good world building too, is that it can't be. It is not. Whenever you have a place that's uniformly terrible or uniformly great, for that matter, that like our human brains look at that and we just instantly go like, that doesn't scan for us. That does not feel realistic, because that's not the way that the world that we're used to works. The world that we live in, the world that we're familiar with, everything exists in pockets. Everything exists in degrees. You can go to what you may think seems like the most beautiful city on earth, and you're going to find pockets of places there that make you feel uncomfortable, that look like they're run down. Or conversely, you can go to it's just, these different, these things don't exist in isolation, and it has to have that kind of continuum, like you're saying.
Yeah, like,
yeah, but that's also why sometimes sorry to cut you off, but sometimes the happy places can also be really interesting to like design around, because it's like because it's almost like people are happier here, let's try and preserve the stat like this, or do you want to take down the happy culture as it's kind of fake? It's like there are ways to run with it. And yes, actually, in the same world of Nidal is also the Steaming Sea, which is the Utopia world area I was talking about, ruled by a gold dragon.
So the gold dragon has his little utopia as a pocket on an island in the Nidal territory.
No, not in the Nidal territory.
Oh, but in Pathfinder territory.
In the Pathfinder territory. I'll need to look at the map to figure out the exact
locations. The thing is, like, Pathfinder, yes. I think if we look at Galarion, the world that Pathfinder developed as a whole, as their planet, there is a lot more of this balance, but I feel like we rarely hear as much about these areas that are good from Paizo. And I think that's a problem, is they, like, yes, maybe these are interesting settings for adventures, definitely, because there's like a lot of tragedy and darkness there, but again, it's like, as a world crafter, I would like to hear a lot more about some of those more nice and happy areas more often than not, also, because then we could kind of balance it out. Definitely, yes, your world theoretically has some of this balance. Show it, please, show it a little bit more. And I think that's the big thing I kind of have with this, and a lot of the books they've been putting out with. I know they have put out a few of them for like the really big, nations.
Actually, so the Steaming Sea is literally off the coast of Nidal.
I'm sure. Yep.
So yeah. Anyway,
that's probably why he set it up there as like the Gold Dragon set up there as like a big middle finger to like the terribleness of that land.
Yep. Anyway, sorry. I own back in the when they did the big Pathfinder Humble Bundle thing. I got like this. I got a like general Pathfinder setting book, so I have like a thing that's like a big chunk of setting for it.
Yeah.
So I read and I kind of skimmed through it all.
Like the general book is really nice at giving a good balance between all this crap, but it's like the specific setting books. It's just that like I would like a balance. That's just what I'm just hitting at. Balance on the setting books. Maybe release for me a couple more of those nicer nations. Maybe they have some like darkness under the surface somewhere. That's fine. Just have it like more surface level. Like we haven't sold ourselves to a dark deity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I know Wyrm's intercepting Orcish Librarian's screen a bit. I'm not correcting it right now in case Joe actually shows up. I don't think he is at this point in time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I could see. I mean, yeah. I mean, it could be very fun.
They might.
Like these things almost do work better when you do look at them within the setting itself too.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like one of these books, because these tend to be like their soft cover books. They're much smaller ones. It's still like in comparison to like the big campaign setting book, it was like maybe like 4 pages, and these are like 30 pages on a section. So it does expand a lot, but a little more balanced Paizo. I mean, that's just kind of what I would like to see.
Yeah, and to be fair, like the book I have is like 4 pages on Nidal. Like
yeah,
30 pages is definitely a whole lot more.
Oh yes, 20 to 30. I think it's like 4 pages in the book, and it's like these books tend to be like 20 to 30 pages traditionally. So. All right, so why don't we move on to the other Paizo product I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about their newest adventure path for Starfinder, because it's the 13th gate, they call it, which apparently it's like, it sounds really awesome because you're traveling to the Gate of the 12 Suns, which is an alien megastructure of a dozen stars in a perfect circle. And there's like a horrible cult there that's trying to take it over, and apparently it's apparently also a doomsday device. So it's like Star Circle. I don't know what it does. Is it like Death Star except using 13 suns as like its power source?
Sounds like it has something for everybody.
I know, but it just sounds like such ridiculous levels, and it's who the. I know, like using, because I have been playing a lot of Starfinder. Starfinder is an example that you go to these places that have alien megastructures and explore them and like learn about them, and eventually you can learn how to use them and like rebuild them and kind of things like that. And they're kind of really neat with that. It's cool, but like.
I'm just imagining the brainstorming meeting that went on for this, where they're sitting there and they're like, what if we had a Death Sun? And the creative lead is like, good, more. It's like 2 Death Suns, more. 13 Death Suns. Like, yes. Now we're there.
Yeah, I definitely agree that's like, there's a weirdness to this entire thing. I feel like definitely there's a cool Death Galaxy. There is a coolness factor to it. I'm not going to deny that you like come across 12 suns arranged in a gigantic circle with kind of like alien megastructures surrounding them, uniting them together in some kind of way. And there's the evil cult that you've been battling against that you have to prevent from taking it over for like doomsday or something. And but I guess that's one of the problems I have with some of these adventure paths from Paizo. Too grandiose. This is their first one. Where the hell did they go from here? From Death's solar system. And this isn't even the climax. This is the 5th adventure. What the hell are they doing in the 6th adventure after Death's solar system?
14 Death Suns.
Yeah, I mean, because there's also a point when you get to Megastructures, like, you kind of start to think, like, how much of an impact can, like, one adventure group really make on a megastructure? Something that's supposed to dwarf planets in scale?
I feel like the only natural way to go is that you go 180 degrees in the opposite direction, and the next one is basically just like a Pinter play set in space. It's just a bunch of people sitting together in a room speaking mostly in awkward silences.
That's the thing is, like... I get that, you know, like, the cult is supposed to be relatively small that they're dealing with, I guess, in quotations. So I guess they don't have...
And yet they have a megastructure?
They took it over! This is apparently was an abandoned megastructure of some kind of alien race.
It's a little bit more fair. How can they run the mega... Anyway.
Yes, like...
Sorry. I'm just kind of like...
Yes, it's 12 planets. How do they run it even with, if, let's say, they have a dozen smaller ships than, like, your hero's elite starship or something, you know, so maybe they're not going for direct starship combat. They're like, you know, trying to go in and take over the command center and eliminate the enemy commander or something, you know, like that. Infiltration, I don't know.
Besides, in my experience, there's no such thing as an abandoned megastructure because it will be filled with cats. Like, as soon as it is abandoned, it will be filled with feral cats.
Whatever version of this race's cats were, it's filled with.
Like, they would show up, and there would be, like, 3,000 space cats living there.
I like this. I really
hunting all of the space rats, which...
Yeah.
Which turns out that space cats are really, like, the size of lions. So, I mean, they're really, like... You really can only have one normally in an area, because when they start teaming up, they actually just... They'll try to eat you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what happens when you, you have, rangers as a... as a actual group of people who can show up, and you know, it's like, oh, the ranger died, and then the cats roam around now. Well, get a bunch of tigers. You know, space tigers.
Space tigers. Space rangers, you know, just aren't as good as normal rangers. I don't know. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of this is really interesting, and then part of that is like ridiculous, because like I don't remember
yeah,
you know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
Tribbles,
yes, Tribbles. They're like Tribbles. And also, like, using Star Trek, they found like one megastructure in all of their adventures. How will you have more like adventure paths with possible more megastructures in Starfinder? Granted, different heroes, but still, it's supposed to be all happening in the same universe. You know, like, this group of heroes is going and taking care of the 12 Suns megastructure. What's the next one doing?
Listen, every spaceship in Star Trek had functioning video conferencing, as opposed to, like, I can't get a Skype call set up with, like, 3 people in the next town over, so anything is possible in space.
I will give you that one.
They never, like, another ship never pulls up, and the captain's never, like, put them up on video, and just, like, the little loading bar comes up. And the Klingons are never like, can you hear us? Because we can hear you, but we can't see you. And they're never like, try plugging the mic back in and out again. Like, you're cutting out all the time. Like,
technically, there was one episode I remember where something like that happened. However, it was the core, like, thing of the episode.
Our video is down. You know, it's like we only have audio. It's like, you know.
Yeah, they're never like, oops, our Blue Jeans license expired, and like, who's got the credit card to renew the you know. This never happens in space.
No. Again, it's an interesting sounding adventure, but I'm kind of now really anticipating learning about the Starfinder 6 adventure, and maybe having us discuss that in another, like next month or something, because I really want to discuss, like, where the hell they could go from here. That's just where my entire thought pattern is. It's like
I'm telling you, 14 Death Suns.
14
Just keep adding more Death Suns.
More Death Suns.
I don't know. I feel like they should be Death Black Holes. Or,
Yeah.
You know.
You'll get to Adventure 8 and it will just be called Yet Another Death Sun.
I mean, the entire adventure path is like called Dead Sun, so maybe it's like they find some kind of sun killer or something rather than like the Uber sunbeam or something. I don't know what the frick this is supposed to be as a apocalyptic space weapon.
I bet they're allowed to build more than one Dyson sphere.
Jeez, just because you can't build more than one.
Sorry.
Oh, that's a great one. Turbolip, take me to the 7th deck. Going to captain's quarters. Yeah, no, they never do that on the ship. Okay. Alright, let's move on from space travel and I don't know what, to pirates, because pirates make everything better, and pirates will make our episode better. So, it came out for the Savage Worlds, so it's officially a Savage Worlds licensed product. If you know Savage Worlds at all, it's Buccaneer Through Hell or High Water, which is specifically a bringing the golden age of piracy to tabletop, where you're raiding coastal segments, boarding other ships, fighting legendary sea creatures, and all looking for buried treasure. So, definitely a lot of cool things by focusing on the age of piracy. Age of piracy, probably we all have a fantasized view of it, kind of thing. Definitely, I would say that.
And every single one of them involves swashbuckling.
Always the swashbuckling. I'm pretty sure you can probably have swashbuckling on this one, too. So, yes, you need to have the Savage World system, but it's a 300-plus page book about bringing the golden age of piracy to life, with rules for ship complex, swashbuckling, ship customization, new archetypes, new edges and hindrances, and some monsters and stuff that you can fight. So they're doing a little mythological pirating, which is fine. I'm never quite against that. It looks as if like you can get the PDF for $20. 30 for a soft cover, 40 for a hard cover, or you get the soft cover or the hard cover with the PDF also, just for the price of it. And I don't know how many like for pirating RPGs, the only one I am really familiar with is I played a little bit, never got to finish it, of Pathfinder's Adventure Path, where you're playing pirates, which was fun, but that's like one portion of the entire thing. That's like there's a pirate section of Galarian, but it's still medieval fantasy swashbuckling, so it doesn't quite fit the same way. And I'm kind of glad that we have more don't forget the scurvy, since we were talking about pirates earlier. We're talking like a pirate day. When you brought up Orcish Librarian, when you brought up talking like a pirate day, I found that really ironic because I had the Pirate Adventure on here.
Psychic.
Psychic. And having that's kind of weird. Pirate Adventures seem cool. I can say that. I'm really kind of happy about checking out this kind of world. Thing is, yes, I don't have a lot of experience with Savage Lands, so I can't say I'm overly familiar with the system, but pirates are always a fun thing to kind of dive into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I honestly have always found the kind of like the mystery of pirates a lot more interesting. This kind of like the sirens and krakens and that kind of stuff to be the more interesting part. So reading through the descriptions of this, I'm not sure how much of that is in here. It may be a little bit more played straight.
Mm-hmm.
I just like ships.
Yeah.
I like sailing ships. They have this I have romantic notions about sailing ships that nothing can dispel, despite the fact that I am like the least nautical person on Earth and get seasick in the bathtub. Like just the moment you show me like billowing sails and crashing waves, I'm on board for whatever it is. I want it.
Mm. I have to say I've got some of that sailing blood deep in my veins. My grandfather was a Navy man, and my great grandfather was a Navy man. My father became a singer and scientist, but that's slightly different direction, but whatever.
In theory, I descended from someone who came over on the Mayflower.
Mm. I have a descendant that was an indentured servant of William Penn. Came over with him. That's a fun one. Indentured servant. That's called pretty much well, that's called pretty much owned by this guy.
It's slightly better than slavery, but yes, it is slavery.
It is a lesser form of it. It is not the worst kind, but
It's a good reminder to always read everything carefully before you sign it.
Yes. Because there are very bad deals you can have on all accounts on all kinds of servant-based deals. So choose a proper servant-based deal. Wait, why am I suggesting? I just was gonna say, choose your servant-based deals wisely when you go to be that butler or that maid.
This is the advice you can use for your life. Advice for life.
Don't become an indentured servant and/or sell yourself to someone in any kind of way. It's a bad idea. Oh,
and
God.
Actually, back when America was being colonized, that was actually a lot of indentured servitude was a good thing. A lot of people who wanted to escape to, like, the Americas would actually become indentured servants for several years upon, reaching America and then be free to do whatever they want afterwards. It's almost like that's how they paid for their trip over.
I'm not saying that there haven't been some really good deals with, like, indentured servitude and different people, different things. But, like, it's also... Yep. That's a lot of the history of our early colonization,
Yep.
People mistreating other people and the degrees of it.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone that was mistreated by us. My ancestors have been in Pennsylvania. We're pretty nice in Pennsylvania. Northeasterners, we're relatively nice. Save for the entire, Puritan witch trials things, but we apologize for that. Anyway, back to pirates. That's the Caribbean.
Yeah. But yeah, the pirates are cool, and it does seem like they do have a little bit of the weirdness of it, but it's just not stated very clearly because they say, the darks, looking in this darkness, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they do kind of mention in a couple places I've seen, they say, like, monsters that you can encounter. They don't specify what it is, which I mean is a little fine, that if you don't, like, really dive into details about, this is the kind of creatures you're fighting, this is the kind of creatures you're fighting, that's fine. And maybe it opens it up a little bit that you have a little options when it comes to battling against these things. I mean, like, they do mention that they have new monsters in there under the drive-through RPG excerpt of the book. Towards the bottom there. So, I wouldn't mind. There's a lot of different options for adventures there that would be really awesome to do. So, I'm glad to have a pretty decent pirating book out there. I know it sounds terrible, but, like, God, I'm forgetting its name now because it's just out. The pirating game.
Sea of Thieves?
Yeah, Sea of Thieves, which ended up relatively weak. It's awesome in certain ways, but just doesn't have anything there. Making up for it, this is, like, I feel like just something that incidentally is on its coattails. Because a book like this has to have, like, a very long development cycle also, 300-page book definitely has a very long development cycle. So, it's on the coattails of it, and for something that, like, what it does okay, but it just doesn't do anything that's very fun. Yeah, exactly what you said on New One. Empty and lacking content. Yeah. Just watching stuff on that makes me want to do something piratey. You're just watching someone else do like that like 10 minutes of play of like someone else watching it a little bit. You're like, I wouldn't want to do that because I'm sure I would get bored. But it makes me want to actually do that, even though I know I'm going to get bored. Because pirating it. Because pirating.
I like big boats, and I cannot lie.
Yeah, we all the pirate life is something that draws a lot of people in. You know, it's the romanticized version of it, with a lot less of the scurvy and the
more sailing, less scurvy.
More sailing, less scurvy, more terrible things done at port. We'll just leave the terrible things done at port off. You know, it's all about attacking other vessels and stuff like that. Yeah, hype. I'll give you hype for this one because it's out and it's a pirate book. And if you play Savage Lands, maybe you'll want it. So, Buccaneer Through Hell and High Water is, of course, available for you to get at RPG Drive-Thru. You can order it there now. All right, let's talk about our last big topic. I wanted to talk about Realms of Terriroth, as I'm saying it correctly. It's for Genesis role-playing system, which is Fantasy Flight's role-playing game system. It's a new source book from it. And Terriroth is a realm of danger, decay, lost legacies, ruins. It's just the fact that Genesis has been an interesting sort of role-playing system that they're kind of, the fact is, like, Modiphius develops a lot of stuff and seems to have a big core. There's, like, Savage Worlds, everything Modiphius does with their 2D20 systems. Like D&D, Pathfinder, these are the big groups. And I feel like Fantasy Flight's attempting to sort of like move themselves into this kind of group with their own dice system, with using a dice system very similar to what they used for their Star Wars system that they did, which is kind of like was off on its own tangent, and they're kind of taking that system they built, bringing it into their own more generic world, and I like how they're pushing it out more. Like, this is like a setting for the book kind of thing. More fantasy, heroic age, new weapons, talents, a lot of different things together for it. Basically doing a lot of heroics and magics and things like that, and trying to make the worlds that you have more populated in playing your Genesis games. So definitely, I like where they're kind of going with things here, as I try to, like, once again, capture the book for everyone to see, if it's cooperating with me. I'm definitely been wanting to check out Genesis System, though. Like, Genesis System is one of the ones that has been attracting me to check it out. Just like I really want to check out Modiphius' 2D20 system and like get a if you've seen the Star Wars dice, how they have very unique dice sets that have like weird symbols and stuff on them. Realms of Terriroth and the Genesis system uses that too. And
it's just Terriroth. There's no Terriroth. There's no extra N.
Yeah, Terriroth.
Before you replaced the N with an R, and now you're adding in an extra N.
Whatever. Look, I got a comment on a video as a tangent with my bad pronunciation, who like was telling me like I pronounced something, I think it was facade, very wrong. I mean really wrong. I like call it like facade or something really bad like that.
Facade. I remember saying that as a kid before I knew what it was.
I probably did facade. And they were saying, like, it's pronounced like this, and it's like, I'm not trying to be, like, patronizing, I'm just trying to, like, be like, watch yourself, like, be yourself, and I'm like, I really wanted to respond just because of the be yourself thing, because I'm like, that is myself, I pronounce things very badly. My English is terrible. It is myself.
I am... No, you do you, but I will poke fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I kind of respect the comment, but it's also like yeah, but it's still I'm probably gonna do it again unintentionally. You pointed out I could facade. Yeah. I could correct myself. No,
because it was like when I was young, facade. The first time I saw the word was in Pokemon, and I didn't know how it was pronounced because I just saw it written. The move facade, and I was like, oh, facade.
Yeah, like God, even I was even trying to do it a little bit in high school when 3rd edition D&D came out. I was trying to pronounce melee.
Okay, some people do pronounce it melee.
Yes, but people were saying, like, is it buffet then or something? I was like...
Yeah, no, it is... I think it is properly melee, but there are people who pronounce it melee. I think that's more of a regional thing.
It probably shouldn't have been my region.
But probably not, yeah.
But I was doing it. But, yeah, so my second N in Terriroth is just, it's a bonus. Bonus M.
Yeah.
Bonus M
Just
for all
like
of you.
Wyvern and Wyvern are both correct, but I say Wyvern. And people who are Wyvern purists,
it's like tomato and potato. What is
or
it?
how in the
It's
South,
water or...
orange rhymes with dorange,
like...
which is door hinge. They say dorange. I'm like, what the frick?
There's, I'm probably not going to be able to pronounce it because it's like a weird thing. It's pronouncing water in, like, an area of Philadelphia pronounces it really weird. And since I'm close enough, I've heard people pronounce
Water.
Like,
right.
like water or... Like,
Water.
Isn't it? Yeah, like water.
I think it's water.
Something like that.
Yeah. Your water here.
Anyway, there's a lot
It's
of
my
weird
bad Philly accent.
There's a lot of...
Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I respect your bad Philly accent because Philly accents are bad anyway. I live close enough to be able to insult them. Thank you, Philly. Philly? You've got like 1/3 of you is nice. Fix up the other 2/3. At least in certain areas of like New York, they've fixed it up, a little better. Like, at least like 2/3 of New York feels a little bit better. Philly, you got an extra third to catch up on. Do that. Anyway. Oh, wow, these tangents have been weird today. But it's fine. These have been wonderful. So, Terriroth, it's an interesting campaign setting. It's more fantasy. They're expanding on their Genesis system. It is mostly snowy and rainy. The sunny part is a lie. That show lies. It's never sunny in Philadelphia. Philadelphia.
I think it's actually supposed to be a sarcastic comment. But
I know it's supposed to be sarcastic. The lies about the sunniness of Philadelphia. Anyway.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty neat system. I always like fun spins on fantasy. Because it seems like a little... I'll be honest, this is the one I look the least at in terms of prep, so...
Yeah, that's fine. And as I said, like, it's interesting that they're adapting that Star Wars system that they have to the Genesis system, like a similar version of it. And then that's what we're using here. Which that's, like... I really do want to analyze the differences between them. Because, like, I do have a vague familiarity with the Star Wars system, but I haven't really dove into doing it myself. I've just sort of, like, more, like, seen some people play it, talked to some people about it. And then they have, like, a lot of that Force, like, light side, dark side kind of thing. I mean, I guess you could adapt it to, like, a good luck, bad luck, or good favor, bad favor kind of thing in a system very easily.
Yeah, don't forget about the Metachlorians.
Everybody else has, fortunately. George Lucas... The legends of what
How
George
many people
Lucas...
did I just trigger?
Oh my god.
At least one.
I did not care enough. It's like... I didn't care enough.
Dumb.
It was dumb. It's done. George
Yeah.
Lucas, no one listened to him when he made suggestions upon selling to Disney about what the 7th, 8th, and 9th Star Wars should be, which is fortunate because he would have made, I don't know, something else abominable. Because as I think Joe said it,
Dark Sith Lord Jar Jar. Come on.
The first 3 Star Wars, Lucas wasn't alone in designing things. He took suggestions from people. The prequels, all him.
Okay, so part of the issue too was a worldview shift. It was the first ones were very what is it called? New Age, but then from there it kind of went a little bit more weird. I don't actually know what the last ones are, but the 4, 5, and 6 were like very New Age in theory, very Eastern, and then it kind of switched to this like kind of like, I don't know,
probably more Western feel, maybe a little bit in the adventure. for for the for the prequels. Yeah, I can understand little tonal shifts in there too. Amongst everything else, there's a lot of bad things in there. Not that those weren't the worst movies. You know, that's the thing I have to say about them. They weren't the worst movies. They just weren't like Star Wars, in like the first trilogy. And again, like I always have my complaints about Star Wars too. So the entire thing. But that's an entirely different topic for a different day. Yay! Yep. All right. So Realms of Terriroth. As much as we've talked about it, I don't think we're going to get any more onto it. It's cool. Check it out. If you've played the Genesis system, you might want this one. If you are interested in a big setting with the Genesis system, this might be the time for you to come into it. Try it out. They've got the big book of world setting, which are always good to have some kind of world setting. I mean, I guess you can do it without world setting, but I feel world setting makes it easier for people to build in. And I think that helps, you know, especially beginners. It makes it easier for the build in, you know. Beginner friendly, I'd say. All right, why don't we move on to our regular segments then, because I always like to do those after we're done our usual segment, or our full thing with, of course, Kickstarter Korner. All right, Wyrm, what you have for us today?
So, I, funny enough, along the lines of kind of the fantasy stuff, I have Lumini and the Cursed Tower. It is a board game that's actually, it's almost like an RPG board game, which is kind of neat. Basically, there is a person essentially playing the Dungeon Master who, I forget what they call it, but, who basically controls the monsters and are trying to kill the players. It was basically like a, you know, 3v1, or it's actually 4 to 7 players, so it's like, you know, it could be up to 6v1,
yeah,
which is kind of neat. And they're trying to, you know, there's like, you know, tile pieces, and you place them out, and kind of you're trying to climb the tower, and you know, and I guess the enemy, the Dungeon Master, whatever you want to call him, is trying to kill the players. And it's kind of like, you know, and then you get like equipment cards, magic cards, artifact cards, and yeah, it's kind of, it's, you know, I if I had a like guess based on what I've read about it, it seems like it might be very similar to something like the Curse of Strahd board game, where it's kind of like, you know, you're kind of traveling through a dungeon.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, but it looks pretty new. It's you know, it literally just came out. It's only about 1/10 of it. It's been out for 1 day, but it's already 1/10 of the way to its goal. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good for a day.
Yeah. So you know, it's just something that just popped up. So I thought I'd show it. Looks good.
Cool. So yeah, if you want to check out that Kickstarter now, it's out now. Orcish Librarian, do you have anything like the Kickstarter or something that you wish to shout out to us today?
I have several things, and I'm going to go through them relatively quickly here. I want to mention again, I mentioned it earlier, if you follow Metal Cardboard on Twitter, that's Olivia's account, where she is a metalsmith. She's a jewelry maker, and she makes these full metal magic proxies. So like if you have like a Gitrog monster commander deck, and you're like, you know what would be really cool is an actual metal Gitrog monster. Check her out on Twitter. She does those. They are amazing. I think she may be closed for commissions right now, but at some point that will open back up again, and that is like the coolest unique thing you could get for yourself or the giant frog monster loving person in your life. We have I'm modeling here today to the best of my ability. We have the GP Seatle 2018 Planeswalker Summit t-shirt, which is available, was available on Teespring. And I believe that campaign is closed now, but will open back up again if enough orders come in. And this is a unique design by Desi Pixels on Twitter, who's a great artist, great to follow on Twitter. And this was a Teespring campaign, and it goes to help support costs for Magic cosplayers. There were so many great Magic cosplayers at GP Seatle. I can't name them all here because it would literally take me the remainder of the stream. But for people who follow me on Twitter, you'll see I've been posting about 18,000 pictures from the event, and the cosplayers are always tagged in it. So check it out.
Pretty cool. I follow you on Twitter, so I've seen a
and if you see people you like, obviously follow them on Twitter. The cosplayers are uniformly wonderful, and it's great to see them come out for these sorts of events. And I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people don't appreciate the time and also the expense that goes into what cosplayers do. The cost of materials, the cost of labor, the cost of transport.
My sister does cosplaying, and it's kind of crazy to see how much work she does on this stuff. In fact, she has like a drawer full of scrap materials that's actually in my room.
Yeah. I mean, even the things you don't think about, like Scrapper Ferret and Scratch Kitty did full-size Johnny and Miri cosplays at Seattle, and getting that stuff to Seattle, you have to check bags on an airplane. It's not all going to fit in your bag. You have to FedEx that stuff to the venue. Like the amount of money that goes into this is tremendous, and these are people doing it out of love for what they do. So opportunities to support that are fantastic. Yeah. And the last thing I'll plug is right now Wizards on Custom Ink is doing 2 t-shirt, not just t-shirt, but other kinds of apparel too. Apparel campaigns, one for Magic, one for Dungeons and Dragons, where you can get shirts and other apparel that have either the Magic Planeswalker symbol on it or the Dungeons and Dragons ampersand in a rainbow pattern to support Pride. And all the proceeds from those campaigns go to support Lambert House, which is a Seattle organization that helps LGBTQ youth. So that is a super cool thing that Wizards is doing right now. It's a chance to get some really cool Magic apparel, some really cool Dungeons and Dragons apparel, officially licensed apparel, and anything you buy, all the proceeds go to support Lambert House. So that's another thing to check out, which is on Custom Ink right now. All the Wizards accounts have been tweeting about it, so you can find those links. And that's another great thing to pick up either for yourself or somebody else.
Cool. Excellent. Now, I just have one I want to talk about. I'm not nearly as cool stuff to talk about as apparently you, so, I mean, I probably should have saved you for last at this point in time, but I do want to talk about a Kickstarter myself that I saw that I thought was very interesting, which is Nagual. I'm probably pronouncing that very bad. It's a Mesoamerican giant robot RPG.
That sounds wonderful.
I know. Okay. It's about Mesoamerica. It's about giant robots fighting off evil and invading aliens. There you go. It's basically inspired by Mesoamerican mythology and spirituality. It's got like a lot of the 80s, 90s mecha series, kind of probably like anime, kind of live action bad mecha series back in that time, kind of inspiration deep into it. And it's, yes, the story's very unique, you know? That's an easy way to say it. So it's 11 days to go. It's about 60% of the way funded. Yes, 60. It's you know, it's like you look at this and it's very hard to like say something more than that. It's a very unique setting just by what they describe there. You know?
Yeah.
For 15 you can get the core rulebook. And they have more like digital prints and stuff like that as you go down the tiers. Their goal is basically to get things printed out and get better art for it too. That's basically what the kind of goal is right now, is to get like expanded and more art that they want for it. I mean, the art that they show here looks kind of interesting anyway. Like the artwork they show off, and like seeing a lot more of that and that kind of putting those out would be very cool. It is one that I kind of would definitely like to see a little bit more. And it's a team that apparently has been working on some things for like third-party stuff for Pathfinder and Starfinder before. So kind of doing something on their own here is kind of neat. I think that's all I can say about it. They provide a little bit of information, but not like a huge deal right now. So I got some time left. Maybe want to check it out yourself. It's a very... We don't see actually a lot of giant robot RPGs. Like, the Mech Warrior series is the only one I know about, and they haven't had a modern interpretation for some years of that one. I can't remember the last time a Mech Warrior core book came out, actually. Like, the new Battletech game, because Mech Warrior Battletech is the same thing, just came out, and they're talking about, like, a new version of, like, I think a tabletop for it, because it was a tabletop, then an RPG, then video games, you know, etc., etc., but the RPG, it's like the only giant mech, other than possibly doing something in like a Besom or something, where you have 1 billion points for mechas and ships and stuff. Mm-hmm. Not a focus. So, I think it's cool to see some more of them. Giant robots. As a fan of giant monsters and giant robots, I can highly support this. You know, I'm a big fan of the Godzilla series, even the terrible ones. Except for that one, and you know that one that's like, that's got Son of Godzilla in it, that's really bad. You know what I'm talking about out there if you've seen the Godzilla movies. It's the one with the little kid that's all in his mind. It's terrible. It's terrible. Everyone confesses it's terrible. We will never deny that. Anyway. How about our week in tabletop? So, Orcish Librarian, did you do anything tabletop related this week?
I played a little Magic yesterday. Bruce Richard, who's sort of one of the doyens of the local Magic community here in the Boston area, is hosting a multi-day event that I got to crash a little bit yesterday and play some Commander, and I had a fantastic time.
Cool. Wyrm, you got anything to talk about?
We did the
Unfair.
What did we play on Sunday?
Unfair.
Unfair, that's what it was called. That was fun. I got third, I think.
You might
I didn't quite understand the rules enough, so I'd love to play that game again. It was a good game. Probably would go faster next time, but it's like I misunderstood some certain things and I would have played a little bit differently, but well.
There are a lot of little tricks to pick up on in that game. Like, the basics are pretty easy, but like learning some of those things that help you accelerate your gameplay, a little tough. And the thing is, like, I do enjoy that game a lot because, like...
Oh, yeah, Unfunny 1-1.
Yeah, Unfunny 1-1. Yep. My strategy, no matter what, thank you for the hook, Ripcast, is...
Oh, no, I thought Joe won.
No, Unfunny 1-1. Didn't he?
Was it Unfunny? Someone won.
Joe might have won. I think it was close on like the upper end.
Yeah.
There was a lot of little things in the game that definitely would have made a difference. Oh, you got last place.
Last.
Oh.
Okay.
That's right. He couldn't get the one
yeah, that one
blueprint.
thing he needed, which that one blueprint, which killed him.
Because of the Batwing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joe won because of the goddamn Batwing. Because he got the goddamn Batwing back. We should have destroyed it again. One of us.
Yeah, I had the ability to. I didn't realize though that it was about stacked on one rather than stacked on all together. But whatever.
Yes. But Unfair was fun. I think I got in... What did I do on last Saturday? See, that's why I'm bad, because I'm forgetful as all heck. We didn't play... Oh! We tried out... What heck is it? No, we didn't try that out. We were possibly going to try out one of those Magic the Gathering, the actual board games, like the Duels of the Planeswalker board game, but it's really complex to set up. It's like ridiculously complex to set up. We were looking at it and we're like, why is this harder to set up than we want it to be? You have to like set up like tiles and like terrain or something, and I'm like, God damn it, this is not diner fare. The Duels of the Planeswalker game. It was cool looking, but it was like, it's like we just couldn't do it. I can't remember what we played then. Oh, that's why Joe's supposed to be here, because I'm forgetful as all heck. And I forget everything. I'm terrible. We didn't play one of my games because I didn't have them. Though there was suggestion of playing my Panda game, Takanoko, but I didn't have it with me. Oh well. I think that's all I did in tabletop this week.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
We didn't do Bastion Frontier. We may not do it this week if Mads can't, but
And I didn't do because Ollie and someone else at Skoink were both busy. Ended up not doing Tiv's game on Tuesday, and I still haven't found at least a third player for Bessem yet, because it is still technically a very early slot, so it is a little more challenging for certain people, you know.
Yep. We'll get back in the regular routine of Bastion Frontier soon. I promise. Things just keep going weird in my life.
I understand the feeling. You know, having made my Thursday be move 2 tons of stone, and I still have like 4 to go.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'm going to be doing as soon as I'm done the show here, is going and doing some stone. I don't know if I'm going to feel like hosting a tabletop day event after that. I was thinking about it for a little bit, about doing some kind of like something on stream for tabletop day, but I'm like, I gotta go dig goddamn stone for a while. I don't know if I'm going to feel like that. That driveway isn't going to finish, moving that stone out from one big pile itself.
Oh, it wasn't this last week, but I wasn't on, but 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, because I wasn't on last week, was I?
Yes, last week it was just me and Joe, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I played Amber City, and that was fun. We finished up the little bit of first cycle, and we switched on to the second cycle. Basically, there's a time loop thing going on in that RPG, and it's kind of fun. So we're gonna have to plan to figure out what to do this time around to hopefully get
time back on track.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is like, we need to stop time from looping. Very Majora's Mask-y, basically.
Look, I already made my relative time travel joke the other day on a photo on the Orcish Librarians when I mentioned Time Cop. I brought in Time Cop of all time travel stories. With Jean-Claude Van Damme and some splits. And paw punches. It's what he's known for. I'm sorry. And I will always make fun of the movie Jean-Claude, or JVC, which is Jean-Claude Van Damme, starring as Jean-Claude Van Damme in Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Or as Bruce Campbell remarked, I see JCVD and I just think, Jesus Christ, venereal disease.
Thank you, Bruce Campbell. Thank you, Bruce Campbell. Always the words of wisdom. Anyway, alright, let's move on to our last segment, though, quickly, because, hey, consult the table. Anybody in chat have any kind of questions for us? Anybody? I could quickly check our Yahoo account, which is discussingtabletop@yahoo.com, for those of you out there that, whoops, wrong, I actually went into my email.
There's also the Discord.
Yeah, you can also head to my Discord. You could technically be on Wyrm's Discord. You can be on the Twitter. Me, Joe, Wyrm, any of us. You can contact us. You can drop us a line at any of those places, and we will do our best to answer any kind of questions you have, check in with you, all that kind of stuff. I guess Unfunny One mentioned earlier, giving him support and getting into Magic like now, even though like it is definitely a legacy game where people that have been players, it's easier for them to continue or to get back into it than to new people. If you really want to try getting back into it, there's definitely a lot of people out there that will definitely help you teach you the game. Most people at most places are nice, especially if you want to learn a lot of new stuff, and I would definitely just buying some kind of deck, whether Commander, Planeswalker, something like that. It's a place to start.
I would specifically recommend Card Kingdom. which is one of the online card sellers, has a line of products which I think are called rookie decks or beginner decks. I don't remember the exact name, but you can find it on the Card Kingdom website, and they're pre-built decks which are specifically designed for new players and come with reminder cards packed inside that walk through what are the phases of a turn, what do the different abilities mean. So for anyone who's either just brand new or maybe coming back to the game after a long time away, that's a great place to start with.
Yep, there you go.
I have never ever played Magic the Gathering. Probably should at some point, but
it's definitely a fun game. But yes, it is. Like all collectible card games, it is best described as a money sink.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like I was into Yu-Gi-Oh, but actually it's funny because you mentioned the whole legendary card thing, and it's like I remember I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh because I got a shiny foil whatever of a pack cover legendary card, and then 2 months later, they come out with a structure deck, which includes that thing as not even the toughest creature. And I'm like, I'm done. There's no point. If they're going to do this, it's kind of pointless to actually go for packs if they're going to just make something better in a structure deck.
Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of that in Magic yet. I mean, I feel like every time they come out with it, the specialized decks, especially now they've learned a lot of lessons. You know, the Planeswalkers deck have unique versions of the Planeswalkers. The Commander decks, well, they're very unique on their own. So they're not going to mimic anything you can, come out with on your own easily. Not that you couldn't build that, you know. And usually they have new cards. So, I feel like...
Actually, this is a good segue to mention a new product line that Wizard just put out, which are the standard Challenger decks, which, doubling back briefly to the earlier question about what would be a good starting point if you're just starting to play or if you're getting back into the game. These are a new deck series that Wizard started putting out. There's 4 of them available right now. They're specifically designed to be a standard deck that you could literally buy off of the shelf, walk downstairs with to Friday Night Magic, and be competitive with in a standard event at Friday Night Magic. So this is a good product for players who maybe are looking to transition to, I want to start playing some organized events, but maybe I don't have a deck built out. And the power level on these decks is actually really pretty good compared to some of the intro decks they've built in the past. The red version of the deck has Hazarets in it. It has Chandra Torch of Defiance in it. It has a lot of the really good red cards that are in Standard right now. And the value that you get in those decks versus the price point, which if memory serves, I think is just $29.95. You get way more value than that in terms of the value of the cards in the deck. And when these were announced, I know there was some trepidation from people who were like, oh, it's not good. They're putting too much value in these decks. It's going to crater the price of some of these singles on the secondary market. It's going to bring down the price of Chandra. It's going to bring down the price of Hazaret. But more importantly, it's a way for new players to get some really good, really competitive cards in their hands very quickly and go straight to an event and play it. And I think these are cool new products that they have.
Yeah. No.
Who cares about the price of your cards? It's more about playing the game. If you're in it to sell it, then sell it.
There's a market between both of those, I think, and there is actually overlap because I've been in the market where I've gone for certain cards to collect them, and I've ended up with more than one by accident. It's I've gotten to a point now where the only reason I buy a box ever is because I want to build I bought a Dominaria box because I want to build a Dominaria deck. I'm probably going to play it for years to come, even way after it goes out of limited. But I want to build one because I like building those kind of block decks, and Dominaria is its own block, I have my core set decks that I like to build, and so that's why I get a lot of these extra cards with the box. If I wouldn't, I would just buy singles and any cards I would specifically need for any kind of decks I have, otherwise. Because that's really, if you're either a collector or you're designing a certain deck, that's the way to go, is just buy singles and stuff like that. But, for me, I literally have some cards in there that I would be totally willing to sell off. I got a normal of the Blackblade Reforged, and I got 2 foil Blackblade Reforged. in that box.
Yeah.
So I have 3
And that's the other
Black Blades
thing
for
too.
4.
Like the really rare things are like the foil cards, and those always stay up in price. You're never gonna they're never gonna drop simply because the structure deck comes out because they're about the fact that they're foil.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure how much people are going to want Black Blades Reforged. I haven't checked, like, it's been a while since I played, checked any prices, in, Magic at all. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Thank you everyone that joined today. Thank you everyone. Oh, minimize that accidentally. Thank you once again for Orcish Librarian to joining us for our discussions. It was wonderful talking Magic and everything else for you. Definitely always fun. Everyone, remember, if you missed Joe, tweet at him, torment him for not being here. Take that, Joe. Unless I specifically say at some point in time that he had a good reason for it, but I haven't heard from him, so I'm assuming it's a bad reason.
And really quickly, let me while we were talking here, I retweeted links to all the stuff that I mentioned.
Excellent.
So if you heard any of that and it sounded interesting to you, if you check out my Twitter, you'll be able to find the links for it.
I'll be able to pick up the links for when I put this out on YouTube later then, too. So that's excellent. That makes it easy. I was thinking about that. I was like, I'm going to look up all these links. Excellent. It makes it easy. Orcish Librarian, where can they find you, what they're doing, all that kind of stuff? You want to give your shout-out to yourself?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I am at bibliovoreorc. That is pretty much the place I am. I have a thick skull. I can really only process one form of social media at a time. So if you want to find me on the Twitters, which I still call the Twitters, or as we discussed in the previous episode, any messages left for me at the diner counter in the bus station in Kalamazoo, Michigan, will eventually make their way to me. Along with the Lost and Found at the Greyhound station in Saugatuck. I have a weird connection with these sorts of things, so that's your alternative way of getting in touch with me, but probably Twitter.
Probably Twitter. Yeah. I mean, the other ways take a little bit more time, you have to, you have to travel there, leave it and all that, so.
It depends on some strange flaw in universal metaphysics that I don't fully understand, so Twitter is probably easier.
Wyrm, where can people find you, et cetera, expect you, all that kind of stuff?
I'm Diamond Wyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter. Ember City for this week was canceled. From what I can tell, because it's like one of the players' birthday, I think. Not very clear, but all that I got out of it was there's no game today. Anyway, I will probably not do anything on my own today because everyone is gone and I have the house to myself and I want to kind of just enjoy being by myself.
Are you gonna pull a Tom Cruise from that 80s movie where he's going around listening to music in his underwear or something? I can't remember which movie.
I love that you had to say that 80s movie because you don't remember Risky Business.
I didn't remember the title. I'm bad with that.
Not really. It's funny because I do the same thing that I do when people are here, just with my door open, but it's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. And as usual, I am Dracovin. You can find me at Cat got pissed off with me snuggling her. You can find me at my Twitter and my Discord, linked below. It's very good ways of reaching me. You can find me here daily. I'll be back tomorrow morning for some streaming. I probably won't be doing anything this afternoon. If I do something afternoon, you'll see it on Twitter and Discord. If I feel really up for it after digging through some stone for like an hour, I might do some tabletop stuff online for Tabletop Day. I'll let you guys know if I do. Otherwise, yes, tomorrow morning I should be back for more morning stream. I will probably be returning to my Stellaris game I did a little bit this morning on Tuesday after Stellaris Verse, and tomorrow I'll be doing something special. I don't know if I'll either continue more of 7 Days Nomad Mode or something else. You can also find me on my YouTube, which I know there hasn't been a lot of scripted content updates because I've been updating a lot of the other videos, but I'm hoping either this week or the next week to finally get back into my scripted content schedule, because I'm pretty close to being done with all the videos I've been re-editing everything on. Spiffy new thumbnails, titles, etc., etc. The videos are the same. It's everything around them is, you know, spiffened up.
I'm a horrible person, but I'm going to plug one more thing, which I forgot. A lot of the people who I know on Twitter, on Magic Twitter, also are really into like Magic story, into writing, and so we just have this new thing that we just kicked off this week, which is a kind of like weekly flash fiction challenge that I'm running for people who want to write Magic-inspired fiction. It's called Saturday Nights All Right for Writing, because everything I do is a pun. And basically every week on Friday, I'm posting some small little prompts, and then on Saturday we're going to invite people to write flash fiction. So if that sounds like the sort of thing that interests people, follow me on Twitter. I tweet about it incessantly.
All right then, sounds good. Okay, so I guess that should be everything. You'll see me and Wyrm here definitely a couple times more during the week, but you'll see me, Wyrm, and Joe all together definitely next week, as we're hitting episode 75. It should hopefully be at least the three of us. Maybe if I get another guest, then I'll have another guest. I don't know. I'll just see what kind of topics there is.
Hopefully have no more hiccups in my life until July.
That's good. I never know when I'm going to have a hiccup. The only thing is, I'm going to.
I don't either, but I'm hoping.
I might have to have Discussing Tabletop a little earlier next week. I'll let everyone know, because I might be doing something in the afternoon Saturday. And I know I'm doing something, I just don't know the timing yet. I gotta find that out. If I need to start a little earlier, I'll let everybody know, and we'll, start a little earlier and stuff like that. It'll probably only be like an hour earlier. Unless I get like news that like, yes, you have to be there at like this time. I'm like, oh my god. Oh god, you're screwing me over here. But I'll let people know soon enough. Anyway, I think that's it then. So everyone have a great day. We'll see you all here next. Me and Wyrm will see you here next week. Orcish Librarian, hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon when we have some new Magic stuff to talk about. That's really awesome. Yes. Cool. All right, everyone. Have a great one, and we'll see you all later. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.